Hello. It's Prince Easy. Well, in this particular video, I have a piece of paper here with me, and basically these are mainly the concerns of the African peoples, right? And when I say peoples, 70% being the youth, then that makes it more of the point of view of the youth. They have questions sometimes, they have inquiries into certain things, yeah? So I made a list, a short list, right? And I would like us to go through them. And of course, I would like to mainly put an emphasis on something very specific for that matter, right? So what do they say? What views do they express, right? They have questions about our resources, right? Our taxation system, right? The bureaucracy, or what I like to call system clutter, right? And then we have the issue of public funding, right? And the irresponsibility of government officials when it comes to public funds. And of course we have the issue of employment, right? And then we have the issue of groceries in general being too expensive, and then we have the issue of bills like power bills and all that, right? And then of course on top of that we have the housing issue, right? And of course to compound everything else, what was said to be the key to a better life for them, which was education, turns out to be not so beneficial, right? And the issue of transparency, right? Transparency when it comes to key decision making, right? They feel sidelined when it comes to the conversation about their future, right? And of course, the re-emerging problem of connectivity, meaning internet access. It has not been a priority for us because we were in the process of establishing systems and establishing networks, so to speak. So it was a time that demanded a lot of investment. But now, is it the same thing? Or, and I'm speaking like different African countries are in different levels of development when it comes to their communication issues, right? And then we have the medical issue, right? Here in Tanzania, for instance, they planned to establish insurance for everybody, right? But that has been having a lot of issues to get off the ground, so to speak, right? It has been facing a lot of setbacks, right? And I know there are a lot of intelligent peoples out there that can overcome these, right? Or basically get back to the root. The root is to make medical service accessible, and insurance is not the only way that this can be achieved, right? We need to unstuck our minds when it comes to problem solving. There are many options out there that are yet to be explored, right? If we are stuck on one thing, like for instance, I have a relative of mine here who has paid over 500K, but still some medications are not being covered, right? 500K Tanzanian shillings. And that's a scary fact, okay? It's not attractive, right? I don't feel insured, so to speak, right? Because insurance is to mitigate risk, right? And if it does not cover everything and it costs that much, then I don't know what a comprehensive package would look like, right? I would say it was not for every Tanzanian, okay? Especially large Tanzanian families, okay? So I think we need to like It's a mindset issue, right? It's not an insurance and failure issue. No, it is a mindset issue, right? The problem that we are trying to solve is accessible medical service to everybody, right? That's the goal. And there are literally hundreds of avenues that can be achieved, right? So we should not get stuck only on insurance and whatnot, right? And then we have the issue of security, right? For some African countries more than others, right? But still, it is an issue in the back of people's minds, right? So let's move on, right? I, as always, express my views on how I see the world and how it's moving and how we can properly adapt, right, so to speak. So the first problem that we are to face, or we are facing, or some of us have faced, is the strong power of the capitalists, right? And what do the capitalists want? They want everything, brothers and sisters, right? And they come under the banner of nations, right? They come under the banner of companies, right? NGOs and whatnot, but in reality, their motivations are selfish. They have nothing to do with the countries that they come from, in reality, right? Because as we see now, some Western countries, for instance, have invested millions on weapons and training of insurgency groups, building bases and all of this investment, right? All of this money that could be used to purchase whatever resource they wanted, literally whatever resource they wanted from these countries, right? But it's not about that, right? It's not about that. It's just about having everything, right? And this cannot possibly be the interests of the peoples of France or Britain or the Americans, for that matter, right? So these are personal interests, but in order for them to execute this grandiose plan of theirs, they need henchmen, so to speak, yeah? And these are the citizens of these countries, right? They serve as the henchmen of the bidding of these individuals that are literally dangerous to Earth and to them, right? Because they are disingenuine in their mission or whatever pursuit they have, to be honest, right? I think it's just simple logic, right? So it goes deep, this capitalist influence. It goes deep because they want everything, and of course the political system of nations has to be part of that whole package, so to speak, right? That whole package. So what end up happening is that they basically buy out countries by buying out government officials, right? And that brings us to the second problem, right? Well, it's the political opportunists, right? Political opportunists. And what does an opportunist need? A chance for it to flourish, right? For their ambitions to flourish, right? Opportunity and ambition go hand in hand, right? In order for a proper expression, right? These ambitious politicians that do not really have love for their countries, right? They just have personal ambition, right? For personal gratification, so to speak. They are given an opportunity, right? These people research them, they do psyche evaluation on them and their vulnerabilities and all of these, right? And then they establish a way to convince them that they could have everything that they desired, and them also having everything that they desired, you know? So when capitalists meet political savages, opportunists, yeah, it becomes a whole other situation, right? Basically casting a shadow on all forms of election, right? Because it's not about power and influence, right? They control the media, right? They literally shape the minds of men at a snap of a finger, right? So it is a question about fighting back and what fighting back looks like, right? Because it is a honestly David Goliath type situation, right? It is. High living expenses, right? Basically inflation and all of that, right? All of these things, I think, they compound and form a peak or a summit to a thing that we are going to focus on today, right? And then we have policy stability, right? Policy stability, right? In order for them to plan for the future, there needs to be a solid foundation under which they can build upon, so to speak, right? And that can only be provided by the leaders of a nation, right? That is their responsibility, right? Bureaucracy. Why does bureaucracy exist in Africa? It's quite a simple question. Corruption, right? Bureaucracy creates opportunity for corruption. That's why nobody is interested in streamlining, for instance, the processes or the procedures that are required for a person, for instance, to establish a business, right? Because bureaucracy creates stagnation that creates situations and environments for corruption, right? So I think it's quite easy, right? I think it should be known and laid out that if you want to start a business, you should have this and this and this and this and this, and it should be well known, right? It should be public knowledge, right? So as people cannot be deceived, right? And basically work harder towards streamlining the entire process, right? And of course, the issue of fruitless education, I think we had a whole conversation about that, right, the other day. So I would not like to talk about it right now, right? And what the main subject of this here video, and that is the resource utilization, right? Since the people do not want to be exploited anymore, right, by way of tax and high living expenses, right, to live under this inflationary system, right? So they look towards resources, right? They look towards resources. And the current situation, the conversations that are being had right now are first to basically put a stop to the exportation of unprocessed raw materials, right? Them being agricultural, mineral, or otherwise, right? At its raw form, their bans are coming, they are occurring, right? Uganda has one, and many other countries, even Tanzania is going to have one. I heard Botswana has one, I don't really remember, right? But there are many countries out there that have come up recently to say that, okay, we are going to put a pause on some raw materials, right, for them to be processed within the country in order to, the reason that is given is for employment and all of this, right? So here is where it ends, really, to say the least, right? For instance, right, like I say, I like to go into details, right? I have 3 examples here. We have vanilla, we have cocoa, and we have gold, right? We have these 3 things. And how far can we take these things, right, in order for them to be ready for human consumption, right? Because that's where the money is, right? So they say, right? All of these figures that were given by Museveni recently about the coffee industry, right? That the people that package and brand this coffee are literally the ones that are benefiting more than the farmers, right? Than the farmers and growers, right? Speaking of, I would like to interject right here, right? This thing I've been forgetting about, right? Like Dompo, you need better graphic designers. Like, that's lazy work right there, right? That's lazy work. Like, look at the designs on Serengeti. Like that's exceptional design right there. Why are you having a layman's design like that? You know, this is important, right? If a person goes to a supermarket, if they haven't, I don't know, consumed a certain product, for instance, for this case, wine, they'll be impressed by the graphics, right? Literally, you take Tanzanian brands and put them on this side and take international brands, not even outside of Africa, just inside of Africa. You'd see that it's not about the wine in there, right? The wine in there is of good quality, but it's not presentable, right? It's not like properly presented. Like there's a horrible design, right? I would like to see that change, right? There are skilled people out there that can be employed to make better designs for your bottles, right? And if you do that, trust me, your sales will rocket, right? Just as it has been done before. But circling back, I think we as Africans are stuck in a certain type of mentality, and we are even afraid to look at the bigger picture, right? Like I said, we can cocoa. How far have we taken cocoa, for instance, here in Africa? Right? We harvest the beans and we extract whatever byproduct comes out of that, right? But we don't make chocolate, right? And there have been attempts of companies like Azam making chocolate, but these decisions were made without any consideration of the competition, right? Literally, it's a problem here in Tanzania, for instance. I could give you an example. There are literally 2 brands that have a monopoly on these 2 products, right? There's one Cadbury or something like that, and the other one is Pringle. Nobody's competing with these people, literally. Right? So let's talk about cocoa, for instance, right? You do not only need to make plain chocolate bars, no. You need to look at the competition. The competition is doing extra stuff over here, putting fruits and nuts and mint all over in there, right? And that's what makes things grow, right? So Azam was selling plain bars, you know, like nobody goes for that, you know. Not anymore. You need to spice up, right? You need to spice up, especially that, you know. In vanilla in Uganda, right? They're using it in their yogurt, and okay, some products we can push them to the peak, right? But when it comes to most of the most profitable resources, for that matter, minerals, right? It becomes a whole other conversation, right? Because we can take the rocks and purify them to make gold bars, right? But do we have use for these gold bars? Yes, they can be used as a backup for currency and all of these other things, right? But still, a lot more is left, right? A lot more is left, and here is where an important and a crucial part of the conversations that need to be had is technology. This, our problem can be solved by technology, right? It's exactly that, right? Because, for instance, right, we have rare earth minerals and all of that, right? But do we have the means to purify them? Are we even aware of the market and how it works, right? Let me tell you in short detail, right? When it comes to rare earth minerals, China is literally the master when it comes to their extraction and putting them into to a level where it is usable, right? From raw material to a specific mineral, right? I don't know if you're catching my drift, right? So the same with nuclear technology, right? Russia, master of nuclear fuel, right? We have uranium, but we do not have the technology to turn that uranium into actual fuel, right? It's the same thing with gold, right? That's why I said the other day, like, gold is useless to us as of now. It is useless. We are better off letting it stay on the ground, right? And for the future generation that will attain some level of high level sophistication in technology, it will be of use of them. It will be of use to them, right? It will be of use to them, right? Just like these minerals are of use to the giants of the economies today in this world, right? In various fields of science, right? So I believe that for those who have achieved semi-autonomy, right? Countries that have achieved semi-autonomy, my advice is we should invest on technology, right? We should invest on technology, training people. And it's not even an issue, especially for Africa, it's not an issue of R&D right now. It's not an issue of R&D. No, that there is no necessity, no. Right? There are bigger problems that need R&D, but many problems do not need R&D. They just need people that can literally just do. You know? Like making those train carts. How hard is it to make a box with wheels? Like, seriously. I'm just saying, you know. I know about the science of the wheel and all of that. I found that on YouTube. So what is then accessible to you, right? And you get to the answer, and it's lack of science. We lack science and technology. In some ways it has been denied to us, and in some ways we have not put an emphasis on it. We haven't really, right? And in order for us to achieve this technological freedom, we need people, educated people, right? And of course a change when it comes to power, right? Because power is an essential component. Water, right? Health, and all of these, right? So it's everything in general, right? Everything has to be set in order for even people to focus on such things, right? People cannot focus on technology while they have a food crisis. They cannot focus on technology if they have a housing crisis. You get the picture, right? So there is a level of standard of living that has to be reached in order for for us to claim this technological sovereignty. You understand? So yeah, I think for now these are the views that I'm going to express, right? So if I have any more